Okay, we're going to start chapter 4 today, which is plotting points in a coordinate plane. Now, some things you should know about the coordinate plane are the quadrants and the axes and the origin. So let me just label those things for you. First, we're going to label the axes. We have the x-axis and the y-axis. So this is x all the way across, and this is y all the way across. Now, x to the right is positive x values, and x to the left is negative x values. Y up is positive, y down is negative. Next thing we're going to label are the quadrants. Starting in the top right is where we have quadrant 1. And then we go counterclockwise. We have quadrant 2, top left, quadrant 3 in the bottom left, and quadrant 4 in the bottom right. Okay, another thing that we should note is the origin. That is the point right in the middle. So this is called 0, 0, because we don't go anywhere, and that is called the origin, like I just said. Okay, so as you can see, that was written as with parentheses, and the way that is written is xy. This is called a coordinate. So it always is x, y in that order, which means we move horizontally first and then move vertically second. Give the coordinates of these points. So there are some points on the graph to your right. We need to figure out what the coordinates of those points are. So when we're looking at A, we see, okay, how far do we move to horizontally first to get to A? We move in the negative direction 3 spaces, so that's our x number. And then we move vertically 4 spaces up, so that's positive 4. Okay, next we have to find how to get to point B. We go in the right direction horizontally 2 to get to where B is located, so that's positive 2. And we go vertically down 3, which would be negative 3. Okay, now we have to find the coordinates to the other 3 points. C is 0, 2. Now it's 0 because we don't move at all horizontally, we only move vertically. D is 3, 1. And E is negative 2, negative 3. Okay, now we saw points and we had to name their coordinates. Now we have the coordinates and we have to plot the points. And then we have to describe the location. So first we're going to do point A is located at negative 4, 4. Remember, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. Negative 4 is our horizontal movement. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we move vertically positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So our point A is right there, and we need to describe the location of our point A. Location tells us quadrant. We are in quadrant 2. And then we have to describe the movements horizontally and vertically. So we move 4 to the left and 4 up. And that would be a good enough explanation of the location of the point. Okay, B, 3, negative 2. So we have to move positive horizontally. So 1, 2, 3. And then negative 2 is our vertical movement. That's down 2. 1, 2. Here's B. We then have to describe the location of that point. We are in quadrant 4. And then we just have to describe what we did to get to point B. We went 3 to the right and 2 down. And point C, 0, 4. So we don't move it all horizontally, and we move up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So describe the location of that point. What quadrant is that in? Well, it's not in any quadrant. It's right between 1 and 2. But what we can say if it's on one of those 2 axes is just state which axis it's on. So this is the y-axis. We did not move at all to left or right. You still have to say that though. And we moved 4 up. Okay, now we are going to graph a function with a given domain and identify the range. We have done this where we have a function and we identify the range given the domain, but we've just never graphed it before. So what we did then was we made a chart. We are given the domain, which is the x values. So we're given -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and then we need to put those points into the function y to solve it. So 2 times -2 minus 1 is -5. 2 times -1 minus 1 is -3. 2 times 0 minus 1 is -1. 2 times 1 minus 1 is +1. And finally, 2 times 2 minus 1 is 3. So we have to plot all 5 of those points on our coordinate plane over to your right here. First one is -2, -5. 2 to the left, 5 down. Ends up right here. And then we're 1 to the left, 3 down. 0 left or right, and 1 down. 1 to the right, 1 up. 2 to the right, 3 up. Now, should we connect these points? No, we should not, because we were not, if we're given domain points, so if we're given 5 points, we just use those 5 points. We do not connect them with a line. If we will eventually do lines, but that's when we're not given just some points for the domain. So now we need to identify the range. The range is all of our y values. So -5, -3, -1, 1, and 3. Okay, same thing. We're going to graph this function with a given domain and identify the range. So you're going to make a table first. It's a good idea to always do that when you're graphing. Use -6, -3, 0, 3, and 6. I'm going to plug each one of those points in for x. -1/3 times -6 plus 2 is +4. -1/3 times -3 plus 2 is +3. -1/3 times 0 plus 2 is 0. -1/3 times 3 plus 2. Oops, I made a mistake there. It's not 0, that's 2. -1/3 times 3 plus 2 is 1, and the last one is 0. Getting ahead of myself. You do not have to show your work like that for every single one. I'm just showing you how we got the values. So -6/4 is 6 to the left, 4 up. -3 to the left, 3 up. 0 to the left or right, 2 up. 3 to the right, 1 up. And 6 to the left, or right, I'm sorry. Again, we did not connect the points because we were only given 5 points. And to identify the range, that was our red values there, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All right, last one here. In 1920, the ratification of the 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution gave women the right to vote. The table shows the number to the nearest million of votes cast in the presidential elections before and since women were able to vote. So that's telling us that 1920 was year 0. So this was before women were given the right to vote, and to the right is after women were given the right to vote. Explain how you know the table represents a function. Well, we talked about functions in chapter 2, and we have to look at the inputs and the outputs. The year is the input, and the number of votes is the output. So how do we know this is a function? Each input is only matched up with one output. This would not be a function if we had -8 2 times going to different numbers. Okay, then we need to graph the function. So this did not give us our axes, so we have to make our axes. In the middle would be good because we need to get from -12 to 12, so we need to have positive and negative x values. And we only have positive y values, so we don't need to have anything below our x-axis. So right on the bottom should be fine. This is x, this is y. And then we need to have a scale because we clearly cannot get up to 40 on the y-axis right now, but we do need to get up there. So let's go by 4s, 5s. Let's go by 5s. Okay, I'm not going to label all of them, but that just tells you we're going by 5s on the y-axis. And if we go by 2s on the x-axis, we should be good as well. Okay, now let's go ahead and graph each point. Negative 12, 15. Comes up right here with our scales. Negative 8 also goes to 15. Negative 4, 19. 0, 27. 4, 29. So I might actually just continue labeling this because we need to go all the way up to 40. And that wasn't that many more letters. 4, 29. 8, 37. And 12, 40. Again, we do not connect the points because we were only given that many points. Describe the trend. Before 1920, it was kind of leveling off. It went up a little bit in 1916, but afterwards it definitely was increasing. So we have it was increasing with more of an increase in votes after 1920. So it was increasing the whole time, but it definitely increased more after 1920 when women were given the right to vote. Okay, so that was section 1 of chapter 4.